All right, so here we go. Last day on quadratics. We'll be doing quadratic inequalities next week, or the next 3 days. So remember, we're looking for parabolas. They're going to go this way, or they're going to go this way. We're looking at the axis of symmetry. This is the first thing that we do. This formula, -2 divided by, or I'm sorry, -b divided by 2 times a, remains the same and is always the same. It doesn't go away. It doesn't switch. F of x, that part of that just means y equals. And we're going to rewrite this equation. And we can do this, we need to do it twice. And we're going to do it without the x's. The x's, if you notice, in the equation turn into parentheses because we're going to substitute. We're going to make a little graph of our x and y's, or our coordinate points, but we need to find the first coordinate point. In absolute value, we were able to use the equation to find it, but it's not in that particular format. This is in a standard form for quadratics. So we need to use this formula, -b over 2a, which means -b times 2a. Well, the a value is that 2, and the b value is that 16. You don't put the x and the y in there. So it's -b, which means the opposite of b, and since it's 16, the opposite of 16 is -16. Anybody not understand how we got that? Basically, that means -1 times b. So if we have 16 and we multiply by -1, we get -16. So then we need 2. The 2 remains. That 2 is just a constant in there. It's 2 times whatever a is. Well, we go up here. A is the 2. It's the number that's in front of the x squared. The b is the number in front of the x. In the quadratic formula, the 29 that doesn't have an x would be your c, but we don't need the c in this particular one. So I need to take this 2 and put it in this formula, and this is 2 times 2 on the bottom. We need to do that first because we have division. So 2 times 2 is 4. Now we do the division part of it. This is -16 divided by 4, which is -4. So just use your calculator. You could actually enter that all into your calculator if you wanted to. So that is our first x value. What do we do with that x value? Well, these are the x's. So we put those x values in there, so that's -4 that goes inside. We take our calculator, we enter 2, we put the parenthesis, we make it a -4 in a parenthesis. Make sure that you square it. A lot of people forget to square it. Does everybody see that looks exactly the same? I love these calculators. Plus 16, parenthesis, again, it's -4. Don't use the minus key. It's -4. And then plus 29. You hit equals, you're going to get -3. That -3 goes right here. Why? Because it's the y value. Y ends up equaling -3. Y equals -3. Where x is -4, y is -3. That's what this means. This is a little coordinate point. It's a coordinate point. That's all we did. Don't erase, because we need this equation. So I need to pick the next number. Well, first let's go ahead and graph it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, there's -4 on the x, and -3 on the y is right here. And if we look, there's -3 on the y, there's -4 on the x. That's where we graph that point. We need to graph our axis of symmetry, because that separates the parabola into 2 halves, equal halves. Okay? We need to pick the next number. And if you look on the number line, it's either you go up and it's -5, or actually go down -5, or go up and it's -3. So all you're doing is looking at this number and picking in the next number. Is it -5 or -3? Well, I like -3. If you put -5 in there, it's not going to make a difference. So now I go in here and I put -3 in for x, because now I have a new x value. And now it's going to tell me what the y is. Hopefully you did not erase your calculator, because all you need to do with this is cursor back, delete the 4, make it a -3. So now you have -3 in there. Now you have -3 in there, and the same equation, hit equals, and you're going to come out with -1. We graph that point. It's -3 on the x, which is right there, and -1 on the y, which is right here. We can see -1, -3. Now we need to make sure that we put it directly on the other side of our axis of symmetry. From this vertex, we went up 1, 2, and right 1. So we're going to go up 1, 2, and left 1. You notice I'm one space over and I go another space over to the left, so that's equal. It's like a set of eyes. Here's the nose of the mouth, and then the eyes are equally apart. Now, we don't draw a straight line. We kind of swoop it up, and then it starts to almost seem like it's coming in, but it's not. Try to keep it about as equal as you can, because it is technically an equal. We would have to do more points. But this is as many points as we're going to do. Normally, I would have you do another point like -2, and then you just enter -2 in here. So if I chose to do that, I could. And that one would be 5, which is -2, and all the way up to 5, which is right about there. So this is a little bit skinnier, and you give a little bit more accurate of a graph if you did that. I was pretty close on that side, a little far out on that side. So anyway, that's what we do. I'm going to go through this next one, these next couple pretty fast. So once again, we're looking for that -b over 2a. That is a constant thing. This tells you what x is, our first x value. So someone said 0, so let's take a look. We have the opposite of b, and b here is -8, so that makes it 8. We have that 2 right there, and we need the a, and a happens to be what? What is a here? -1. Well, it's not going to be 0. So we have 2 times -1 is -2, because 2 times -1, -2. 8 divided by -2, -4. So we'll come over here. F of x just means y. So we have -1. We are taking out the x's, and I'm going to do this twice. So the first one I'm going to put in there is the -4. So I'm going to put -1, parenthesis, -4, parenthesis, which means multiplication. Want to make sure that you square it. You're going to put -8, not -8. Parenthesis, that is a -4 on the inside. And -20. Make sure that you understand that's a negative because it's in the front. Anything in the parentheses would be, a negative. But when we're in the middle of an operation, those are minuses. You do need to distinguish that in there, otherwise it's not going to come out correctly. Hit your equals, and it's -4. So we need to graph that first point. We go to -4 and down to -4, which is right there. We draw our axis of symmetry. It doesn't have to be perfect. Try to get it down that line. I know that whatever I draw on this side is going to be the same as what I draw on this side. That's why it's symmetry. It means the same. All right. I think some people are still getting confused as to what number we need to use next. Just count. So if it's -4, where do we go from there? You can go to -5, or you can go backward and go to -3. I don't care. Actually, backwards is -5. I prefer the smaller number because normally I do the math in my head. Does anybody not understand where that number came from? We picked it. We chose it. You can't just go randomly pick any number on the board, because if you go way over here, that dot's going to be clear up on the ceiling. Okay? So we take that -3 and we put it in our equation now. All we did is replace the x's with the x's. We take this and we go through and we just replace the -4s with -3s, and nope, -5. So something didn't go in your calculator correctly. That one, the square? Yeah, you have to make sure that you square it. That happens a lot. That's why I've mentioned it each time that I do it, because everybody forgets about the square. Make sure that that square gets up there, okay? All right, so we have -5. So we go to -3, which is the next one over, and we go to -5, which is right there. We went from the vertex, we went down one, right one, so we're going to go down one, left one. We just do it equally across the axis of symmetry. Now, this is a -1, so therefore our parabola is going to go downward. Make sure that you go to the end of the graph, because you're going to find out later we're either going to shade this outside part or this inside part when we get to inequalities. All right, -b over 2a. So the a is the half, the b is the 4. So opposite of b is -4, because it's opposite of it. 2 times half. That's an easy one to enter into your calculator, because believe it or not, 2 times a half is, anybody? 1. And you can enter that in calculator. You just use this key right here. Or you guys at home, you can take 1 divided by 2, you get 0.5, and then 2 times 0.5 is 1. And -4 divided by 1 is -4. So our first is -4. We're going to put this into the equation now. And actually, I'm going to write them all, just get them started. Can be the first thing you can do before you even get started on any of them. Just go ahead and write that out without the x's in it. Put parentheses for the x's. So it's going to be -4 is in my first one. If you want to, and you feel the need, you can go right over here and I can say, well, my next one's going to be -3, and I can put -3 in there. Or you could do -5, I don't care. Well, now I got to enter that into my calculator. You're going to use this button right there. It'll give you the half. At home, take 1 divided by 2 and you'll get 0.5, and you can enter 0.5 in there. Whoops, not parenthesis. 1, and then you have to move it down, 2, move it right, put your parenthesis, -4, parenthesis, plus 4, parenthesis, you have to put -4, your parenthesis, plus 12. Oop, I missed it. What did I forget? The square. It's easy to go back and put it in there, don't erase. So the answer is 4. Go in there, go to -4 and up to 4. That's the axis of symmetry. Go back to your calculator, change those to either whatever you decide, -3s or -5s. Oops, can't be both. It's got to be one or the other. There we go. Your calculator comes out with 9/2. Hit the SD button, this one right here, and it's going to say 4.5. Anytime you have those halves, it's going to end up being that way. So where do we go for this? We're going to go to -3, and we're going to go to 4.5, which is halfway through. 4.5 is 4.5. So we do that same thing. What happened, half goes over the other side. You notice this thing gets wider because the half makes your parabola shorter but wider. It's wider. It's like fat. It swoops out more. 4.5. You guys at home should come up with that. If you use those calculators, it should be 4.5 without even thinking about it. We need to fly through this so I can give you some time to get these done. Negative b. So b is 32. So we do -32. It's the opposite of it. The 2 is the constant. It just stays there. It's just part of the formula. 2 is, or a is -4. 2 times -4 is -8. Then we do -32 divided by -8, which is 4. Take the formula, remove the parentheses or the x's and put parentheses for the x's. Everybody understand where this is coming from? It's just this without the x's. You'd be surprised how many people ask me where that comes from after we do like 3 or 4 days of it. So I'm going to put what in here? Putting the 4 in there, right? It's just the number we came up from this little ditty over here. So we just put it in there, -4, parenthesis 4, parenthesis, we make sure we hit the square. Oh, not quite in there, you can't see it. There we go. Make sure the square gets in there. Even I miss it. It's easy to do when we come up with a crazy number. I caught it right away, but it happens. You come up with a crazy number, make sure that you recheck. Two doesn't seem crazy, does it? It's a good number. So we go to 4 and 2, which is right there. We go 4 on the x, 2 on the y, and we put our dot. We graph our axis of symmetry. What happens on one side happens on the other. We have x is 4, so we just pick either the one above it or the one below it. We can pick 5 or 3. We'll put 3 in there. We go back to our calculator, change them. What's inside the parentheses to a 3, and we get -2. Doesn't seem like a bad number. We come over here, we go to 3, and we go down to -2. What happened on one side of the axis of symmetry has to directly go the other side. So I went 1, 2, 3, 4, and left 1. So I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, and right 1. Yes, it does seem very far away than normal, but it's because there's a 4 in front. It really stretched this one. So this is going to be a very skinny parabola, whereas the half made it fatter. The -4 made it go down and skinnier. Okay? There you go. Got the next 4, guys.